Shut your face.
I'm sorry, it's just warmed over story.
How dare you?
Oh, God, we got a Star Wars nerd? Oh, Christ, I'm going to have to rip your ass. I'm going to have to rip your ass apart, man. I hate Star Wars. I'm hating Star Wars nerds more and more every day. I really am.
I'm not an anything. I'm an everything nerd. I actually love the more geek stuff that comes out, the happier I am. The movie or the TV show in question has to be really shit for me to not like it, because
like
I'm
you're
just
saying,
happy that all this stuff is coming out.
But see, that's what I'm seeing. It's like a lot of nerds just love shit that comes out, not depending on the quality. Most nerds seem to like something that comes out just for the sake of it coming out. You know, it's like...
No, if something's bad, you know that I've talked about stuff
But I mean, look at the prequels. Look at the prequels. Each of those movies made $1 billion fucking, and they were horrible pieces of shit.
They're awful.
That's because fucking nerds went to see that thing 5, 6, 7 times.
That's because people were hungry for Star Wars, because nobody had any Star Wars shit for, 20, 15 years?
But that still doesn't make up for the fact that they were bad movies. If they're bad movies, you don't go to bad movies. But these nerds went to see those movies over and over again because it was Star Wars, not because it was a good movie. They went to see it because it was Star Wars. Like you said, they were itching for a Star Wars movie, but when you go see a bad movie over and over again, there's something wrong with your fandom.
I don't. If I don't like a movie, I'm not gonna pay. I'm definitely not gonna pay with these theater prices to see it over and over again. Fuck that. You know, like I saw Batman and Superman in the theater once. And then when a good copy came online, I watched it a couple more times just to watch the parts that I liked. But same thing with Suicide Squad. I paid to see it once. I enjoyed it as much as possible in the theater, but then when I watched it again and repeat viewings online, I was like, wow, this thing just completely falls apart.
Oh, geez, we hated it in the theater. I only saw the extended version just to see what they cut out, and when it came out on DVD, that was it. I have no interest in theater.
When I saw it, Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, when I saw that in the theater, even when you go on premiere night, you go on a Thursday night. That's the night I like to go because the people in attendance are not going to make a peep during the movie. They're there. They're diehard fans.
Yes.
They're there to see the movie. They're going to shut the fuck up as soon as the lights go down. They're not going to talk. Nobody's there with kids. Nobody's there with a fucking camera trying to record it. They're all there to really see the movie. And even then, you're completely engaged in the movie. And even with all the excitement of premiere night, these horrific, obvious edits were jumping out at you like buckets of water in the face. And I was just like, whoa, what scene was there that they just yanked out? You know, it was obvious that they were just chopping huge chunks of this movie out, left and right, and that threw me out of the movie. That's what put me off to paying for any future DC movies. I'll wait. I will wait until it either comes online or enough people whose opinions I respect are so strong that I should see it that I'll go along for it. But I don't trust Wonder Woman, I don't trust Batman, I don't trust Justice League, none of that shit. Warner Brothers has lost me.
Yes.
I have everything like you mentioned, Patrick. You mentioned Midnight's Edge. You know, all those video blogs that they put out is Warner Brothers is like, it's like a bunch of nervous old women making movie decisions. They have no confidence in anything they're putting out.
To me, the deal that Flash keeps losing directors is a awful sign for their franchise.
That's a bad. Wonder Woman, the same thing. How many directors Wonder Woman had before they settled on this Patty Jenkins or whatever her name is?
I don't know. I think they were looking for a female director right from the start.
But there's a lot of talk that it's a mess. They said, but it's a salvageable mess according to the reports.
Okay.
But I don't want to see a salvageable mess. I want to see a good movie. I don't want to have to see the movie 10 times in order to see the great version.
Right.
Yes, I agree. Unfortunately, you're not going to get that with Warner Brothers. I think you're right. You're not going to get that with any Warner Brothers movie. There's too much corporate. Too many chefs spoil the broth.
Totally. After BVS and Suicide Squad, it's like I don't want to see the accountant's version or producer number 5's version. I want to see the fucking definitive creative team's version of what the movie is. I'm not going to pay for that shit over and over again. That's ridiculous. And remember, Batman versus Superman was almost doomed from the start because it was originally Superman versus Batman. And then Affleck tested so well in the test audiences, Warner Brothers started demanding more Batman scenes. And then all of a sudden they changed the direction of the title and it became Batman versus Superman. And then they added the Dawn of Justice, and it just kept going through these mutations.
Right.
They're trying to play the catch-up game with Marvel.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Trying to introduce all the Justice League.
When you're looking at, Avengers made $1 billion. Avengers is going, you got to be the chief of the thing said, get me $1 billion superhero movie. Otherwise, you
Well, that's it. Yeah, the Warner execs are going, well, we have this property called the Justice League, which is made up of a bunch of heroes, and they're like, fine, fuck it, let's go, let's make $1 billion.
And they're trying to introduce the Justice League through fucking emails between Batman and Wonder Woman.
I didn't think that was a bad way to do it.
No, but they're doing it, from what I understand, according to one of the Midnight Edge reports, they're doing it again in the Wonder Woman movie. There's more fucking emails between Batman and Superman telling storylines.
Oh, God.
Come on. Like, what is just tell the... Listen, at this, Marvel, you got to give Kevin Feige massive props. This guy really, he had to have, it can't be bullshit that he had this vision from all the way back before 2008. Like, they knew that if Iron Man hit, they would be able to expand the universe step by step and build it. And now they just have this license to print money.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing that I keep harping on with friends when we talk about comics, is that continuity is the strength, is the backbone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's why everybody loves these movies, because they intersect. So it's a world that everybody becomes familiar with, even if they don't come from a comics background. But yet, in comics themselves, they retcon shit every 3 months. So continuity is irrelevant.
Exactly.
When we get into the new Marvel universe, maybe next week, but one of the things I feel like reading Marvel now is I don't know what I know. I don't know all the time. I don't know what counts anymore.
Right. Nothing counts because depending on who the next creative team is, whatever you just spent your money on and spent however many weeks or months or years reading just gets thrown out the window. It doesn't matter.
Yes, of course. And Patrick, that's...
Whatever happened 10, 15 years ago is completely irrelevant now.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And Patrick, the guy on that Joe Rogan show that was talking about the mythos of heroes, I think that he kind of missed that point, too, when he was talking about you have all this myth created from all these writers, but there are certain things they can and can't do. But he didn't really cover about how certain writers, or every writer that comes after another writer, will sometimes contradict what went on before. And like you're saying, you don't know what you know anymore because it's either rebooted or it's contradicted by the next guy or it's contradicted by this. It's like... So, yeah, there's no...
You know that
there's no unity anymore.
You know that was not the case in the Jim Shooter era of Marvel, for example.
No, not at all.
I blame Quesada for all that shit. I think Quesada threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Which... there could be something said for, saying screw continuity, just tell a good story. You can't, Marvel's going on 70 years. You can't keep having the same continuity, like you did. Iron Man was, in the 60s, Iron Man was against the Chinese, the commies. There are, yes, maybe we're having a Cold War again with Russia, but it's, you can't keep doing stuff from the 60s. The Punisher came out of Vietnam. You can't do that. Right. You can't say, oh, the Punisher's from a Vietnam vet, because he'll be 70 years old now.
No, I agree with that you can't have, it would not fly to have Frank Castle killing Vietnamese people now in this day and age. But having him fight evil in some form can continue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Despite forces of evil, whether they're...
No, but that's what I'm saying. If you tell a good story, that's fine, but you can't keep the 50 years of continuity of him being a Vietnam vet perpetuating forever. So what I'm saying is maybe it's a good idea to get rid of continuity.
But here's the bit of irony. where remember we were talking about these writers trying to make the characters more realistic, right? More real life, more relatable to the average person. Well, who the fuck forgets their past? So the continuity in comics is essentially the character's past. So why is that? I feel like the writers are just weaker writers, and they can't function within the structure of a continuous Marvel universe the way the writers of the past used to. Because take Bill Mantlo or Frank Miller or Marv Wolfman, or these guys would just pop into whatever fucking title they got the job to work on, and they wrote a good story within the structure of that established universe. They didn't do away with everything that came before. They wrote good stuff.
That's true. Like Daredevil's origin, you could set it any time. But when your character's origin is set at a specific date and time in history, like Iron Man being in communist China, like the Punisher being in Vietnam, you can't.
Well, you
can't
can have
keep doing you could do the good story, but you can't do the continuity. And even though the past is the Punisher's past is Vietnam, you can't. Then you're playing with time.
There's some interesting shit right there. Let's talk about the Punisher, who for me is kind of boring at this point because it's the same shit over and over again.
Fuck yeah.
But what if you looked at that character? You have a guy who was in Vietnam. He came back with a certain amount of anger and animosity at the world, whether he was angry at the Vietnamese or he was angry at the government for sending him to Vietnam. And then you have this guy with that history intact trying to adapt to the new world, and his mind being expanded by the changes in society, by the internet, by world politics, and adapting. But you still have his past as the backbone of that. You know what I mean? Like we all do. We all have a past. We all did dumb shit in the day when we were less informed and we had a more jaded point of view or a more biased point of view. And with willingly, if you're an educated person, you expand your worldview to adapt and you adjust accordingly. So why not do that with the Punisher instead of just having him be the same guy from the Vietnam,
Exactly. That I agree with. Yeah, but if like I was saying, you can't keep playing up his Vietnam past in perpetual continuity. It has to stop. And what you said, I like that idea, but you can't keep making a 30-year-old Punisher in 2020, talking about Vietnam. You just, you can't.
The average viewer doesn't relate to it. They don't know it. They know the Iraq War or Desert Storm or something like that. You have to update them.
So you have this shifting timeline with continuity. But what I'm saying is just do away with it.
Mm-hmm. It might sound silly, but take the Lego Batman movie that just came out, right? It might be one of the best Batman movies ever made.
That's what everybody's saying.
It's the Lego Batman movie. It's the most ridiculous premise in the world. But if you watch this movie, there hasn't been a more faithful Batman movie, I think, ever made because it addresses every aspect of Batman's continuity in a couple of sentences and incorporates it into the timeline and into the current storyline so that all of that shit existed, even this version of Batman that's being explored in the movie. And it's probably the most human exploration of Batman in a completely ridiculous setting like these stupid Lego characters. Like in the movie, he was the Adam West. He was the Tim Burton Batman. He was the Christopher Nolan Batman. These were all looked at as phases of his life that he went through up to whatever the current version that he was in the Lego Batman movie. And again, I know how fucking silly it is to say Lego Batman. Yeah. But they respected the continuity from day one to today, and they made a great movie that Warner Brothers had no confidence in, and it was a fucking smash hit.
Well, the Lego movie from last year made a ton of
Mm-hmm.
money.
But this particular character, in keeping with the thread of comic character continuity, you take something, and the Lego Batman movie is a satire, but at the same time, it's a satire, but it's simultaneously a love letter to the character by people that clearly respect and love this character. I mean, every one of his villains is shown in the movie. Even Condiment King is one of the worst characters in the universe.
But like you said, it's a satire. It's not it's a one-off movie. It's not the perpetuating continuity of a monthly book.
Right, but it still it respects and incorporates all the incarnations of this character that have come before, instead of dismissing them, which is what happens in current comics. They just go, fuck whatever Superman did last
Exactly.
Now he has lightning powers and a fucking solar-powered iguana. You know what I mean? Like, they just, all of a sudden, they just make up some bullshit. You know, Garth Ennis dropped some acid, and now he can fucking sit on clouds or whatever the fuck he wants to do. You know what I mean? Because, you know, it's much too troublesome to actually know the history of your character.
You know, I want to bring this. Gary, you know how Joe Benigno says fans care more?
Yes, yeah.
I like this fandom. It kind of feels like that. Cause like, you know, how long have you been reading Spider-Man? You know, what's his name? You know, what is any writer that comes on that character gonna know that you don't?
You mean like the newer writers?
No, like who's writing Spider-Man?
Dan Slott. Dan Slott.
Like, I mean, you know as much about Spider-Man as Dan Slott, or maybe more.
Well, see, to me, I go on and off the book, depending on writers and artists. Well, I understand your point, but I'm saying someone like Dan Slott is paid to do research.
Right, and he's been on the book a long time.
Yeah, he's actually probably the most prolific Spider-Man writer.
Like 1970s, we were talking about the Secret Empire story last night, where Cap rescued all the mutants. In that scene, they had Cyclops start a fire with his I-beams.
Mm-hmm.
And Cyclops I-beams can't do that, you know. So
they don't generate heat.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think one of the problems is, like, they keep rebooting, like every like I don't know how many times the DC rebooted.
What, 3 times in the last
Marvel,
5 years?
Yeah. Like,
God.
52, Final Crisis. Wasn't Final Crisis kind of a reboot after that?
Mm-hmm. Well, aren't they rebooting it again with this Rebirth shit? Don't they have a Rebirth thing going on?
Rebirth is sort of like what you said. Like, it's not a reboot, but the writers don't have to worry about 52 continuity.
Mm-hmm. It just feels like comics is the only, and maybe I'm wrong, but comics feels like the only genre that doesn't pay attention to continuity. Whereas, like, if you take novels, well, look at novels. If J.K. Rowling, every time she put out a Harry Potter book, completely remade Harry Potter, she wouldn't be the fucking billionaire she is now. That series would have never thrived. The same thing with George R.R. Martin or any of these other novelists that have written trilogies. There's a continuity that pays. It's what keeps fans coming back, because they feel they're growing with the characters. So we grew up with these characters. So when you do away with the continuity, you essentially go, well, yeah, you might be appealing to the whatever the current fan base is at the moment, but you're just smacking in the face and doing away with the past 20, 30 years of readers. That have
stood by. But now, when the Marvel Universe was only a few books in the beginning, continuity was a novel idea, and it worked. But now when you're putting out 80 books a month with 5,000 characters over a 70-year publishing history, it's not a viable business option anymore. And you're saying that we grew up with the characters? No, Pete, we grew up. The characters stayed the same age.
Well, yeah.
You talk about look at Peter Parker. Peter Parker started Spider-Man at 16. He's only supposed to be 30 years old now, maybe. And that book has been around for 60 years, almost 60 years.
He should be like 76 by now.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ, how long did he stay in high school and college? He fucking graduated college in 1983. He finally, from 61 to 83. That's
But again, you're talking about evolving the character, but that doesn't necessarily equate with doing away with the past.
Yes. Yeah, I like what you said. Yes, the past is part of their mythos, but you can't keep using that past as you're perpetuating. You figure what in 30 years. Think of what technology is going to be like in 30 years. Are you still going to have the Punisher talking about Vietnam 30 years into the future and still using an AK-47 when 30 years from now the technology will be...
But if you can have little moments where he runs into another old-timer like Captain America or Wolverine and they start sharing war stories and you can inform new readers through their interactive dialogue what his past was like without having to do a flashback. Right? Because there are other old soldiers running around the MU that he can interact with. And they can have these little quiet fucking character moments and then you can talk about that. But it doesn't have to be a constant reminder like with Spider-Man, where every other issue was a fucking flashback. Oh, I got bitten on the high school field trip. We know.
Yes, like I said, I'm agreeing with you that the past is shaping the character, but you can't. I think after a while, 30 years from now, you can't keep saying that this guy is only 30 years old, fought in Vietnam.
No, yeah, no. I'm all for. Hopefully, I didn't misrepresent my point of view. I'm all for them growing up and evolving with the times, but that doesn't mean you do away with their past.
With their past.
Their past is what shaped them.
Right.
So
the past is what shaped them, but the past then shouldn't be part of their continuity. It's what shapes them.
Because it's a part of who they are.
Right.
If you're treating them like well-developed, literary figures, then the stories that came in the past, that came along beforehand, should matter. The elements of those stories should matter.
Right.
There should be some relevance.
The elements of the story matter, but not the whole thing itself. I mean, look at Batman. He came out of pulps. I mean, basically, Batman's origin is his parents were killed, and he wanted justice. That's basically it. But look at what they added over the years. He used a gun in the early days of his comic because he was from the pulps. They added that, Joe Chill murdered his parents. He first figured out who he was. Then they retconned it where he didn't know who it was. The red, some guy falls into a vat. Oh no, now it's the Red Hood that falls into a vat. Now the Red Hood becomes the Joker. You know what I'm saying? It's just, basically the essence is his parents were murdered before his eyes and he wanted justice.
Right.
That's it. That's the core element of what makes Batman Batman. But you can't keep saying, oh, he used a gun 75 years ago, so that's still in continuity today. It's like, no.
Right.
No,
but you could touch upon that in a story. It would take probably a panel. Right, you could address it really quickly and just move on, or even make a story out of it. Even explore the fact that this is what I used to do. You know what I mean? I don't do that anymore because I used to do this.
Right.
Like you have reformed alcoholics who are no longer alcoholics because they did this, and that. Or you have somebody that grew up in an abusive household where their father was a drunk beating the shit out of people, so because of that, they refused to touch alcohol. And it inspired them to do something else. The past helps shape the future. So addressing it just makes the character more relatable because you're like, I have a past, my friends have a past.
Right.
This imaginary character has a past, so you form that bond. You know what I mean? You form a connection with them.
Yes, and I totally agree with that. Like you're saying, those are
he doesn't have to keep doing the same shit. He doesn't have to keep.
See, we're talking about the origins of these characters where you can't. But as you keep moving forward, you can't keep using that. That's what I'm saying. If you got rid of continuity, you could talk about the Punisher being a Vietnam vet, but you don't have to keep saying, oh,
no. You don't have to erase it.
Yes.
In order to make new stories. You know what I mean? You don't have to completely destroy the past in order to make a good story. That just seems like a cop-out. To me, from a technical standpoint, it seems like weak writers not being able to work within those confines, work within the structure of an already established continuity. So they just want to do whatever the fuck, and they don't want to be held back, or they don't want to have to work within a structure. That just seems weak.
Yes, I totally agree.
That's just my thing. I'm a huge fan of continuity. I think that's what made comics so fucking memorable and made them last as long as they lasted. Because they were supposed to be disposable. You paid 10 cents, you bought the shit, you read it, you throw it in the garbage.
Right.
But because it connected from week to week, and what mattered in week 1 mattered later on in week 3 or 4, people held on to them and they rose in value and they became these cherished items. So it's ironic that now the storylines don't matter because every couple of months they get thrown out. So they're more disposable now than they were than ever.
Right, but they're now creating new continuities every time they reboot. But guys like us who remember the previous continuities and the fans, they're trying to make all these reboots fit into one cohesive continuity, one cohesive storyline, which is impossible because, like I said, you have to add the pulp gun from Batman's origin. You have to add the purple gloves. You have to add Joe Chill. You have to add Kathy Kane as the original Bat. It's like you have all these shifting continuities, but people are trying to make it a linear storyline. That's what I'm trying to say. It just doesn't seem to work.
A good writer can do it. And again, it's crazy. It just sounds. I know
a good writer can do it, but think about all the writers that have tackled Batman, and there's only one writer that has been that made it work in a way, which was Grant Morrison.
Mm-hmm. But Grant Morrison did it, right? He incorporated all of Batman's past in his storylines, and you have the Lego Batman writer who did it.
But the Batman movie again is a one-off. It's not issue 656 of Batman. You know what I'm saying? It's not. They're trying to make that 65th issue fit in with issue 1 from 1938. And like I said, Grant Morrison is a talented writer, but out of all the Batman writers, he's the only one to make it work.
Yeah, I think, but and
even now it's been discarded. Now it's even been, so what he did doesn't even matter anymore because of all the reboots.
But again, even if he's one of the few writers that is capable of doing it, that we might even have to say he's one of the few writers that's able to do it over the past 10 years or so, because when we grew up, whatever writer got put on the title just made it fucking work. You had Bill Mantlo, who's probably one of the most unsung heroes in comics, who wrote like almost every title in existence at one point. He was on Cloak and Dagger, he was on Daredevil, he was on Moon Knight.
Oh fuck, I loved him. Yeah, I loved him.
And he just wrote good stories with the characters as they were structured at the time. The guy popped in and out like a fucking wizard, and was I think if I'm not mistaken, I think he used to fucking save those titles because some of these guys couldn't keep up their schedule.
Yeah.
And he would fly in like a hero and just write stories. He was writing almost everything at one point in the 80s.
Well, because I was reading, I think it was Shooter's thing. He said Bill Mantlo was just like a guy. Like if the script didn't come in, Bill Mantlo would come in and throw one in a week.
Yeah, he was just a wizard. He was a wizard.
Yeah.
And he did it without destroying whatever happened the week before.
Oh yeah, I give you credit. But
all the guys back then, and now I know that the production value of comics is much more sophisticated now than it was in the 80s. The coloring is more sophisticated. The production values, the illustration is much, the characters are much more realistic. There's much more detail, blah, blah, blah. But shit was always on time back in the days, and if you were late, you were fired. And things were always on time. The continuity was maintained. The quality was maintained. And back then, you even had certain superstar creators who were doing multiple titles per month, like George Perez and John Byrne. And I hate John Byrne, but John Byrne was doing multiple titles at one time. I think he was writing a couple of times.
We're going to talk about why you hate John Byrne for another time, because you just crossed the line, motherfucker. You just crossed the line.
He's a dick in real life, but as a creator...
I've heard stories about him being a dick, and I've heard stories about him being a nice guy. When I met him twice, and he was a nice guy. So and I always liked his work up until Dark Horse 1989 when he was doing X-Men. So I was a fan, and let's face it, him on X-Men made Marvel. More than in the 70s.
Claremont, Byrne, and Austin were the fucking team. Just like Wolfman and Perez were the team for DC at one point. Those Teen Titans storylines were unbelievable. And they were never late. And Perez was a detailed beast. He always has been. But there was I don't know what it was. There was something about the old guard and I don't think I'm being nostalgic when I'm saying this, but they somehow made it work within a much more rigid structure because Jim Shooter was known for being a fucking taskmaster.
But what I'm saying too is that, when Shooter took over Marvel in the mid to late 70s, you're only talking about 25 years of publishing and 1,000 characters. Nowadays, like I'm saying, you have over 5,000 characters and 50 years, 60 years of continuity to make work. But every time they reboot, and like we're saying, every time they reboot, they seem to say, fuck the past. But the fans want to make everything work. You know? Like look at what DC did with New 52. Everybody got rebooted except for Batman and Green Lantern with their histories. And now, look at all the uproar that caused with Batman, because now you had Batman has only been around for 6 years, but he still had the 6 Robins, and everybody's like, what the fuck? People are trying to say, how the fuck can this be? You can't have Dick Grayson as Robin for 1 year in the Batman mythos, and then Tim Drake, and then Jason Todd.
Didn't New 52 end up being a huge disaster?
Yeah, and they rebooted it, again because they tried to make all this stuff, convoluted stuff, fit, and it didn't work. If you're going to reboot a whole universe, you should have done everything from a clean slate instead of saying, well, we're only going to do part of the universe rebooted and the other half, Batman and Green Lantern, we're going to keep their 75-year history, but they're still going to fit in within the confines of this new reboot. So it didn't work out. So they said, Batman was only Batman for 6 years, but he had Tim Drake, Jason Todd, and Dick Grayson as his partner. And it's like, that makes no sense.
Again, they're not I guess to look at the other side of it, they're not operating, presumably, from a purely creative standpoint. They're operating from a business standpoint. And according to articles like by Mark Waid and some others that I've read over the years, the accountants are making the real calls as to what gets printed and what doesn't.
It's weird. I can see that with Marvel because they're owned by Disney. I can't see that with DC. Publishing-wise, I think Warner Brothers has left the DC publishing alone for the most part, up until the movie money started coming in. But I really can't see them doing that.
But DC definitely, DC has their own accountants. It might not have anything to do with Warner Brothers as their parent company. They could be DC's own accountants making these calls and crunching these numbers. And they know, I think you and I discussed this in the past, that every time they do a reboot, it's for the quick cash grab because they'll get a surge in sales. They'll get a spike in sales that will last for about 3 months. And then the books that spiked will drop right back down to whatever they were selling before the reboot. So
of course.
It's a trick.
That's a trick, but I don't think that's an accounting call. I think that's more of a business call from guys like Dan DiDio and Jim Lee, who are basically doing it to save their jobs. I think,
But again, it could still tie into an accountant call. It's a money thing. So Dan DiDio and Jim Lee are like, all right, we need to fucking crank up get some money into this company quickly to please, to please other countries.
We got the New 52, which then Flashpoint was Flashpoint New 52 or New 52 Flashpoint?
Flashpoint led into New 52.
We got that, and then there was the one they just did with the.
They did Convergence, was it?
Convergence, and now there's Rebirth.
Rebirth. Mm-hmm. But I can't see that being like an accountant saying, hey, we got to reboot everything for DC, because DC has always been left alone. While Marvel, when it was his own thing, did what they want. But now Marvel's owned by Disney, which is way more corporate than Warner Brothers in a way,
Well, they're both. I'm guessing. But again, like I said, the key word is guessing.
Yeah, but we're all guessing.
Back in the day when I actually visited both places, Marvel was it was an office. Physically, I physically had been to Marvel's offices when I was in high school. I had a friend of mine who used to work there, so I would go meet him. Bless you. I would go meet him after high school, and specifically meet him because he could take me into the mailroom and give me a pack of comics for free, because they had stacks of comics in the mailroom. So I would show up there, and the office was just an office. It was a bunch of cubicles and a bunch of faux walls, and it was cheap carpeting and moderate office lighting. But when you went to DC was like they had the DC characters painted on the walls. It was very bright light. It was very corporate. It was very blue and gray. It was way more, a much more professional corporate setting than Marvel. Now I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you because, they're both run by mega corporations. Warner Brothers, not some fucking mom and pop organization.
No.
Of course, Disney could buy Air if they wanted, but
no. But what I'm saying is too is yes, they're both owned by corporate things, but Warner Brothers to me has always left DC alone. Jeez, when Warner Brothers and AOL teamed up in 2000, you had the two biggest media companies on Earth merged. And think about it. What did Warner Brothers and AOL do with their comics division with all these DC characters? They did nothing. Now maybe times have changed since then. Now think about it. When you had AOL and Time Warner, they could have created so much content with these comic book characters, made them known the world over, other than Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman.
What was the time period that they merged? AOL?
It was 2000, 2001.
Okay, that was at the dawn of comics being anything in the film industry. Because that was, you had, Spider-Man and X-Men at the time that hit it off.
The X-Men movie was coming out around that time. Spider-Man was a year later. But what I'm saying is that, you had two big media companies.
Spider-Man was 2000.
Yeah, but you had two big media companies, and they said, they had all this content, and they did nothing. Now, maybe times have changed since 2000?
They probably didn't care about it.
What?
Those rich guys didn't give a shit about comics because it didn't make money.
That's what I'm saying now. Maybe, like you're saying, it was maybe an accountant decision to do all these reboots and whatever. But I'm thinking they didn't give a shit about these characters back in 2000. Now, yes, times have changed now, but maybe I said, DC was always more left alone.
No, but the accountant thing isn't speculation. I'm just relaying what I read from Mark Waid's articles and a few other comic articles that have floated around on the web over the last 5 years or so, where they're saying that much like the film industry, the comics industry, the big moves, the big title pushes are being made by the accountants. I'm not guessing. That's what I read.
Yeah, I don't see that. I can't. What are you going to say, Patrick?
Talking about this guy, when you look at Marvel, like Captain Marvel's numbers, Moon Girl's numbers, Squirrel Girl's numbers, there's a lot of these. They're moving 17,000 a month, 18,000 a month. Why is Moon Girl? I think does 12,000 a month. Why is she still getting published? I don't know. So I don't think it's just solely numbers. It's not only profit numbers, because like Gary said.
Well, maybe because it's an IP, right, Pete? It's an IP. They figure maybe they keep Moon Girl going, even though she sells 12,000 copies, because they know somewhere down the line it could be a toy, a cartoon, a bed sheet, a pajama.
They could be in it for the long con.
Right.
Excuse me. And they know that. Listen, anybody with any business sense knows that if you make something geared towards the female market and it hits, it's a license to print money, because the people that control the money now has changed. The demographic has changed dramatically. You can look it up anywhere. Women have more purchasing power than men do, which is why there are more products across the board being made for women. In the 80s and 90s, everything was an action hero because guys were doing more of the spending. But over the years, it's changed, and women are doing more of the spending. Right. So it would be stupid. It would be stupid not to make products for women, because they're the ones with the money. They're the ones that are shopping.
Right.
They go
I just want to say before we do our counterpoint, we're at over 3 hours now. We're talking. But Pete, I totally agree with you on that. But then why didn't Disney take advantage of Black Widow from the 2 Avengers movies and the 2 Captain America movies?
That could have been some
and Iron Man 2.
Yeah, that could have been some dude. I mean, that could have been some old dude. They underestimated the popularity of that character, according to those video testimonials that are online.
All right, before we go, Black Widow, when she was in Iron Man 2, they started coming out with a Black Widow series, and Black Widow's up to what, a 7th #1 since that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
So they tried to push Black Widow.
Disney took a lot of heat for not having a Black Widow toy out.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, why didn't they do that if they know that the women are spending more money nowadays? Why didn't they cater to them with a strong female character for kids, for teenagers? She was the only female in the Marvel movie universe for a good few years.
Well, you also have to figure we have to kind of also think about that these are human beings. These are guys that are in charge, so you have some guy that's in charge of a certain aspect of the toy line or whatever, and you don't know what that guy's like in his head. You know what I mean? These are still people that are inside of this corporation making these decisions, and according to the reports, somebody in charge of that just underestimated the popularity of a Black Widow character. Of a Black Widow toy line or Black Widow merchandise, and they took a hit for it.
Okay, but by the time second Avengers movie came out, she was fairly popular with the movie-going public. But they still didn't do anything with her.
Yeah, and there should have been something. I mean, an example of Disney, and again, not to defend Disney, but then again, I'm not trying to slam them, I'm not trying to defend them, but
just trying to understand them.
Yeah, counterpoint, like. They are course correcting constantly. I just saw an article just a couple of days ago that they're going to do a live action Mulan movie, and it's going to be an all Asian cast because they do not want to suffer the whitewashing backlash that they did for Doctor Strange by making the Ancient One Tilda Swinton instead of making him an Asian character like he was in the comics.
Oh, the reason they did that, it was very interesting politically correct casting because the Ancient One was Tibetan. China had got control of Tibet since 1958.
Yeah.
They didn't want to alienate their second biggest market.
Yeah, exactly. That was more of a political thing.
That's their argument, which sounds feasible. But then when I looked at the responses from the Asian actors like George Takei and some of the other Asian actors on my feed, they thought that was just a bunch of horseshit. I don't remember.
I don't think so either.
Arguments in particular. I know that was definitely the PC reason for making putting the blandest woman in creation as that character, because Tilda Swinton really.
Tilda Swinton was terrific in that movie.
Well, she's fucking bland. She's paper. She's like white.
She's one of the best actresses out there today.
And also, why they deal with all this Celtic imagery and stuff too.
I think she's as generic as socks.
Yeah, I don't understand the Celtic angle.
I thought she brought nothing to the role. I mean, she was serviceable, but Cumberbatch carried the movie. Benedict Wong was great. I can't remember the dude's name who was oh God, who's the black guy?
Baron Mordo.
I can't pronounce it.
Baron Mordo, yeah, I can't remember. Was it Ejiofor or something along those lines?
But Pete, like you said, they're course correcting with the live action Mulan, but and
that's just an example of a company presumably trying to learn from their mistakes. You know what I mean?
Right, but all I'm saying is, why haven't they course corrected with like the Marvel superheroines? Disney seems to be more concerned about pumping up anything Princess Leia wise from that acquisition than they are dealing with this whole stable of superheroines. The Wasp, Scarlet Witch, Black Widow. They really haven't done anything.
Well,
with those characters.
They have been making steps to, if you've noticed, Disney has been sort of retconning their female characters slowly. Like, look at Once Upon a Time, for example. They've completely retconned all the female characters. I mean, that is a very pro-female show.
Yes,
they've touched on almost all their continuity, from Jasmine to Snow White, to so on and so forth. They made them all strong female characters. So I think they're doing it slowly, maybe. I don't know. I'm guessing, but
I know we're all just
I think there's apples and oranges there. Once Upon a Time is on ABC, which
is a Disney-owned channel.
Yes, I know, but it's a channel caters to women from mid-20s up to their 40s, and that's what all those shows their whole channel is based around that. So that's who Once Upon a Time is for. So they're not gonna, you can't compare the Disney movies, which are for kids, to Once Upon a Time.
I agree with you on that, but also Disney, since they own ABC, like you're saying, they catered to women with Once Upon a Time, How to Get Away with Murder. But for some reason, that Agent Carter spinoff from S.H.I.E.L.D., it bombed big time, and Disney really didn't do anything, I think, to promote it.
Or they did. I saw it on bus.
Okay, but then, you're talking about a network that caters to women and all these successful shows that have gone on for years and years, and Agent Carter only got 2 years and then got canceled. Yeah. That is kind of strange. And like I'm saying, it seems like the Marvel...
I don't play that on Disney. I play that on Fan.
But again, ABC is notorious for canceling good shows. Agent Carter is not the only good show they've had that they canceled after 2 years. They canceled Pushing Daisies. They canceled Better Off Ted. They have an army of shows that needed time to grow and were really great premises, and they just, because the ratings didn't come in fast enough, they just chopped the legs off from under them. Fox does the same shit.
Right, but what I'm saying is this was a network that catered to women from the Marvel Universe, and again, Disney doesn't seem to be pumping up Black Widow, The Wasp, Agent Carter, which all seem to be Marvel superheroines.
Mm-hmm. It could be I'm guessing that Disney is a predominantly male-run company.
But they're pumping up Princess Leia.
She died.
Well, no, even before she died, they were pumping her up in toys, books. There's talk about making her an official Disney princess, part of the, like all the other Disney animated movies.
But look at how long that took. Princess Leia was invented in 1977, and making her a Disney princess became the talk of the town just a year or two ago.
Well, that's because Disney only acquired Star Wars in what, 2010, 2011?
Well, that's true. That is true.
But meanwhile,
So if we're talking timeline wise, then the concept that it's a company that is slowly course correcting can still apply because they just got all this stuff 6 or 7 years ago.
Well, the reason they bought Marvel was because they didn't have anything for boys. So they bought Marvel specifically superheroes for boys. And I don't think the cost for that. I mean, I guess a little bit.
But think how many movies Black Widow has been in.
But those movies, it's like printed money.
Yeah, and also think how many movies she's been in such a short amount of time, and they really haven't, like I said, pumped her up. While Princess Leia only came back in one movie 2 years ago.
But I think Princess Leia. I think Star Wars franchise is a much bigger franchise than say Marvel was before Avengers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I totally agree with you. But I mean, that Avengers movie was the starting point for them to pump her up, and they really have.
Yeah, but I mean,
they didn't do anything with. They didn't make any toys of her when they put out all the toys from the first movie. They didn't make any toys of her. They barely made anything of her for the second movie. What?
I'm a Disney executive. Pitch Black Widow to me.
She is a spy who has come over to the American way of thinking and life, and she is a skilled fighter on par with Captain America, and she may have fucked everyone in the Marvel universe. I don't know.
It's like, yeah.
Okay, good. Let's make a point.
And he says, well, how do a comic sell? And you go, he doesn't have one.
She has on and off series over the past few decades, yes. But she's been a member.
She had Amazing Adventures, and then she had a couple miniseries.
Yes, and she's had a couple of long-going series that have been canceled. But she's been a member of the Avengers. But she's been a member of the Avengers for fucking 40 years at least.
But name those long-going series.
Black Widow. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all her series are called. Hey,
well, you know what? That's an interesting point because she hasn't really had a long-running series. She's popped in and out of continuity consistently for years.
Yeah.
She's in Iron Man. She's in Captain America. She's in Avengers. She pops in and out all over the place. She's been like a B-list character or not an extra. What do they call those actors? Like a day player or something like that. They just come in, they do a role for an episode, and then they disappear. I don't know if it's day player, whatever the fuck they're called.
Yeah, it is day player. Yeah,
but what I'm saying, we're talking about the comic. We're going by the movie now. When the movie hit it big, they pumped up all the boys. They didn't pump her up. And and Disney caters to girls. Their whole franchise is based on catering to girls.
Right, she's a girl in a guy's movie. They're looking at the Avengers as a guy movie. That's why they bought Marvel. Marvel is for kids. Marvel is for boys. Disney is for girls.
Right. So again, why didn't they pump up the one female?
Because she's in the boys universe, not in the girl universe.
She doesn't have a line of her own. She doesn't have her own franchise or comic line or toy line. I'm guessing. I'm totally.
Fuck. Neither did Frozen in that fucking.
No,
Frozen was a chick flick.
Executives that make these money decisions.
Yeah. They took a
Avengers, right? Disney bought Marvel to get on Disney XD and make cartoons about the Avengers and Spider-Man, so the little boys would bite the toy. That's why they bought Marvel. Mm-hmm. They didn't buy Marvel to get girl power.
Right, they bought it to get boy power.
Boy power, right. But she turned out to be a breakout character in the movie, and it just seemed weird that they didn't take advantage of that.
I think they got to think. The Marvel universe, cinematic universe, is the boys.
I think that they just underestimated.
But you're talking about a company that had 80 years of successful history of catering to girls. Right. And I understand your point, saying, okay, now we need the boy side, but you can't ignore the female side in the boy universe.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It just seemed weird that they just ignored her for 3-4 movies.
It seems like they underestimated that character, and they dropped the ball.
Yeah.
I agree. They definitely underestimated the character, but also it's not like it's like, okay, who's Black Widow? Well, she was part of a KGB assassins program where they took little girls and abused them for like 10 years and then turned them out as sex machine killers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But Patrick,
girls love her.
But Patrick, you're saying, but Disney has always revised origins. I mean, most of their fucking movie universe is based on the Brothers Grimm, and they took all the grim, horrible stuff from those fables and totally negated it to make cuddly characters like Cinderella, like Snow White. They could have done the same with Black Widow, but they didn't. For some reason.
If you take that away from Black Widow, then you don't have Black Widow.
Right.
Oh, come on. You could still say you could cut out the KGB bullshit and just say that she's a Russian defector who's now works for the American government as a spy. That's very easy. You don't have to say she did all the brainwashing and torture. They didn't do it with the Brothers Grimm stuff during Snow White.
Well, what's the name? Put it in there.
No, the Brothers Grimm stuff was severely neutered in order for Disney to make those, to tell those stories and make those cartoons for kids.
Right. So you could have done the same with the Black Widow origins.
They for whatever reason they didn't.
Yeah.
I think they just underestimated.
It just caught them by surprise.
Well, looking at the past, like as a studio, Catwoman, Bomb, Supergirl didn't go anywhere. Who else? Eon Flux, nowhere.
What a horrible movie.
What else?
What?
You know what I mean? Like, what?
But then again,
like there's always a stereotype. Like it's RoboCop, but with nuns. Like they always say that, and that's how you pitch to Hollywood.
Yeah. You got to mention a movie that's already exists that was popular, and then throw in your little spin.
Right.
Yeah, there seems to be a stigma attached to female superhero movies from the past that didn't go over well, and that they're afraid to do again.
But yeah, remember we were saying about like female action lead shows like Agent Carter, and we just listed like 24 off the top of our heads.
Right.
Remember, it was like Cleopatra 2525, Xena.
Yes.
Oh man, I love that show. Cleopatra 25 was
that's funny.
shit,
those shows are successful. Those shows were successful.
I'm biased because I love Gina Torres.
Yeah.
Gary likes Gina Torres.
I love Gina Torres. I love her on Firefly. I loved her on Angel. I loved her on that stupid Cleopatra 25.
Yeah.
I thought Cleopatra 25 was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was during the WB action pack with Hercules.
Right. But it seems like all those. But like you're saying, Patrick, those female lead action shows were successful.
Not really. They were cult hits.
They were cult hits. Well, Xena ran a long time, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like 7 years?
Syndicated. I'm pretty sure Xena's ratings, ABC, NBC, and CBS were canceled up there on those.
Oh, that's because it was on the CW, you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, it was syndicated, so it was on, and remember, it was on during the day. It was worldwide. They showed it, they showed it everywhere.
I think it was on Saturday.
Yeah, I remember it being on Saturday nights.
Yeah, I remember it being on, it was also on during the day, too.
I think it aired Saturday nights and then replayed Sunday mornings or Sunday during, something like that. But Xena became an iconic character, a big-time feminist icon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember if fucking DC was smart, she would have been the perfect Wonder Woman in her heyday.
Yes.
I mean, Lucy Lawless looked amazing.
Everybody
those fucking eyes of hers, man.
Yeah.
And then her physicality was perfect. She could do the stunts and stuff, and she would have been awesome.
Yeah, she would have been. And I also always said Gina Torres would have made a good Wonder Woman in the 2000s.
Yeah, he's been saying that for many years.
Gina Torres could be anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Gina Torres is like my Angela Bassett. I have such a thing for Angela Bassett. Like, I feel like she could play anything, and I don't care what she does. I'll watch her in anything. If she should have been Storm. Fuck Halle Berry.
Yes, 100% agreed.
Angela Bassett should have been Storm. She would have brought such glamour and grace to that character. Halle Berry just looked so stupid in that little haircut.
But then now here's an interesting thought. Like we were saying, like we mentioned all the bad female superhero movies. Mm-hmm. We're going on 320. But think about all, the Aliens franchise, which had a strong female protagonist. Yeah, Terminator. The Terminator had a strong female protagonist. Nobody mentions those when they talk about doing female superhero movies.
There's something I wanted to bring up in regards to female characters, and it was something that I remember.
You had The Bride and Tarantino. that was successful.
Robin Quivers on the Stern Show mentioned something. They were talking about, oh God, what is her name? Tomb Raider, the actress.
Laura Croft, Angela Jolie.
Angela Jolie, thank you. When Angela Jolie came up with Salt was originally written for Tom Cruise, I believe. And I think Tom Cruise passed. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think Cruise passed on it, and they tweaked the script and made it for Angelina Jolie. And Robin didn't like the character as much as Howard did, because Robin felt like she wasn't being a woman. She felt that her argument was, and this stuck with me for years. This is an old argument that they had. I don't know, God knows how many years ago. I guess around the time of that. The female characters are written. Yeah, they're written as men. So they were saying that a lot of the guys who get into these female characters are really identifying with the manly things that these female characters are doing. That they're not really writing female heroes as females. They're writing females who are doing things that only men can do.
I can see that.
I felt that about Starbuck on New Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
I can see that point. I can see why that could turn some women off.
That's a tough call because I loved Starbuck on that show. But in the beginning, she was very macho. But I felt like as the series went on, they created opportunities where she could be more feminine and be more vulnerable to kind of counterbalance her toughness, like her pilot prowess.
It was more than that. They were like, she was hard drinking, fighting hard, smoking cigars.
And I think they did that to get guys to like her right away.
See, to me, it just turned me off because I felt, I don't think this is a real woman. But she did. I remember seeing a scene where she's in the hospital bed and a dama comes to see her. It was just a great. Everyone almost just killed it, and she was great.
Oh, the two of them. That series is just like one of my favorite things ever in the history of ever. But I think there's something to be said about a lot of these female characters, and again, this applies to comics as well. So it is all in keeping with the themes of the night. Is that a lot of male writers write women as just tough bitches who can punch guys in the face, and they don't
like this night,
right? And they don't explore what makes them feminine. Like you have Tarantino. You mentioned Tarantino. Take Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. She was super vulnerable and super tough and nurturing, and she was multi-dimensional. When she saw the daughter, she just fucking crumbled, like any mother would, you know what I mean? When she finally sees BB in part 2, she's a vengeance-driven badass in the first movie. She's snarky and bitchy and rebellious against the martial arts teacher. But then she becomes respectful, and you know what I mean? She's got all these dimensions to her that female characters can have, and male characters can't. Male characters are just tough, and they're just mad, and they're just going to get revenge. And even if their best fucking friend in the world dies, they can't even cry because they'll look like a pussy because they shed a fucking tear over somebody that they're supposed to love and supposed to be close to. They just got to kind of look up at the sky and either say nothing or go, no, and then the rest of the movie is just them loading clips into guns, you know what I mean? And jumping through windows or blowing shit up. And there's so much more that you can do with a female character, like with Thelma and Louise. That was originally a script written for two guys.
Yes, yeah. That is true.
And it would have been old hat if it was two guys. It would have been,
another Butch Cassidy and Sundance, yeah.
Right. But because it was these two fucking amazing actresses, they were able to really go in all these different directions and really let them be vulnerable and tough and dynamic and, just all of that, and be emotional and be best friends and get mad at each other. And unfortunately, you can't do that with male characters without the general audience thinking the male characters are bitches.
Right. Yes.
But a lot of writers don't explore all that dimensionality that comes with a woman. They just make them tough bitches who punch guys in the face.
Yeah. I totally see that point and that way of thinking. I could see Robin's point of view on that. Totally. But
like when they ever have girl power moments, like Ant-Man, that's not I'm like, really?
Yeah, that's for the 15-year-old dude that's somehow turned on by women beating them up. And I knew a bunch of guys like that growing up, even in the pre-internet days, where they just like, oh, she's tough, she can fuck that dude up. And it's like, that's so hot. And it's like, why is that hot? Yes. Why do you want to get beat up?
Yes.
Gary, explain it to me.
Why do you want to get beat up by a chick in the thong? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I want to get beat up by the Swedish bikini team. That's what I want to get beat up.
Like, I never got that. I never understood what was hot about like a chick beating the shit.
I know.
What's wrong with you?
Exactly. I never thought that was hot either.
That's not sexy at all.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't get the shit beat out of me by some chick I want to lay down with.
Exactly.
That's not fucking cool. Like, I don't want to go out with, I admire, what's her face from the UFC, the blonde that was...
Ronda Rousey?
Ronda Rousey. Like, I really admire her fighting prowess. I admire how she elevated herself but I don't want to fucking go out with a chick that can beat the crap out of me. What the fuck is that?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't mind that. If she's tougher than me, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't want her to beat me up, but I wouldn't mind her if she was tougher than me.
No, I don't know. That's a case by case exploration.
I think we're gonna have to bring a therapist in if we talk about this next week.
Yeah, you start arguing with her about the fucking toast is too dark and she body slams you. That's fucking gonna play a real cramp in the relationship.
Oh, feminists are going to love this podcast.
Oh, welcome.
Well, look, I'm calling it. We're at 3:27.
Yeah,
we talked way too fucking much tonight.
Chopping it to 2. We don't have to do it next week.
You know, we'll do an Oprah ending. We'll say, well, what did we learn here today? I think we learned nothing. That's what I think.
I think you're right, guy. Other than we all loved Logan, which, you know, especially Gary, it's tough to,
yeah, Gary liking something is like fucking lightning in a bottle.
Hey, I can't help it if I have superior taste. Don't forget, I have superior taste than all of you. I'm Italian. I'm white, so I'm superior taste. Don't forget, the Italians gave Europe culture and taste. So therefore, I'm a better expert than most of you.
Get the fuck out of here.
What are you talking about? Italy gave the world 80% of all the fucking world. Art, wine, culture. If it wasn't for the Italians, Europe would have been playing around with their thumbs up their asses, drawing stick figures in caves. We gave the world art. Therefore, I'm better expert than the Irishman over here. I'm better, you know. So screw you both.
Don't forget the book, How the Italians Saved Civilization.
Yeah,
because we had the Roman Empire. There's been enough books written about the Roman Empire.
Yeah, well, that shit's dead.
Hey, Leonardo gave the world fucking the Renaissance. Hey, what have the Irish done? Goddamn shillelagh.
Leonardo was a freelance artist just trying to make a living.
So are you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just as important as he is.
When you create the next Renaissance, then I'll give you props. How's that?
Well, I need some rich king to pay me to do some shit.
The Medici family you need? Well, that was Michelangelo. You need the Medicis.
Like Kanye West. Where's my Medici family to pay for my shit?
Exactly. So yeah.
I think the Greeks preceded you Italians.
Oh, what they do? They sculpted a couple of statues and then they stood around talking all day.
Yeah,
did nothing.
You guys gave us wife beaters and IROCs. The fuck out of here.
Damn right, and those things are eternal, baby.
And the mafia, IROCs, and wife beaters.
Damn right. And let me tell you, the world was a better place when the Italian mafia was in control.
By the way, Pete's talking about the shirt, wife beater shirt, not actually wife beaters.
Yes, the wife beater shirt.
Wife beaters.
Oh, okay, that's the one. There we go.
There we go. There we go. Now we're really diving down into the bottom of the barrel.
Ends in some racist shit. That's what's great about it. I think that's a theme.
Yep. The Elder Nerds are a cesspool of
misogyny and racism. Yes.
We want women to be hot.
Yes. Barefoot and pregnant. Just be quiet, stand off to the side.
Yeah. And occasionally beat the crap out of us.
So, Pete, there's our theme.
Misogyny and racism mixed with comics.
Exactly. So, okay, let's wrap it up. We're at 3:30.
All right, fellas. Good night.
Night. Good luck. Godspeed. Next week's the 10th. So, yeah, we'll do one on the 10th, but then the week after is St. Patty's Day. And I know Patrick ain't going to be in the mood to do something on St. Patty's Day.
You know what you should do is chop this one in half.
Patrick's going to be drunk.
Patrick doesn't feel like doing one. Stick the other half on that week.
Yeah, you know, maybe that's it. Maybe we'll do that, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that we have enough people who are going to sit through 3 hours of our bullshit.
No, I think I'm going to have to divvy it up into 3 episodes. I really think so. You know.
That way, if we feel like playing hooky next week, we don't got to do shit.
You know, that's an interesting thing.
Daredevil, Iron Fist drops at the end of the month.
Ooh.
I think it drops on St. Patty's Day, so that's another big thing.
What drops on St. Patty's Day?
Iron Fist, Netflix.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Jesus, you're gonna be drunk. You're not gonna be able to stay up and watch it.
Yeah, he'll be going up in the street.
I've been rolling around in my head back for a week. How am I gonna do it? Oh.
You're gonna have to choose between abusive alcoholism and Iron Fist.
Right.
And binge watching Iron Fist, staying up till 2 in the morning when Netflix drops it, and binge watching it until 12 o'clock the next night.
There you go.
Just
like
keep hitting yourself with your shillelagh, and you should be able to stay awake.
Oh, I can't go go to sleep now. I've got to stay up and watch the
Right. Listen to some bagpipe music. We all know how the kids love that. Well, that's it. We hit the nadar. We hit the...
Oh, Lucky John. That's a good one.
All right, I'll talk to you guys over the weekend.
All right.
I'll probably be editing this crap all weekend. I'll talk to you then. Take care.
The podcast has only been 7 hours.
I know, right? Later. What the fuck? Wait. File. Oh, shit. I gotta fucking...